Ready? You go, there. Hi guys, it's Rob from Royal Boars. It's been about a month or so since I did my last breeding update, so on today's episode we're going to focus on what's happening in the snake room. I've got some questions to answer from all you guys who have contacted me, so thank you very much for those questions. And in today's episode we're going to focus a little bit on our breeder males. So this month, as I said before, is probably the busiest time of year during the breeding season. Here we are in December. So females are now starting to build follicles, and this month we've been busy pairing. Cleaning. Females are starting to get very enthusiastic about their feeding as they start to build follicles, and we see a lot of classic bull wrapping, cool seeking, and females laying in uncomfortable positions as their follicles start to grow. This time of year I am paying particular attention to which females are eating, which females miss, and likewise with the males. We like everybody to be eating on a regular basis, and that encourages the building of follicles. And at this early stage none of the females are off food. The follicles are still developing, under 25 millimeters, but it's not unusual when the follicles do start to grow and the females are still eating that they get a little bit uncomfortable. There are growing follicles in there and their digestive system is working overtime, so you will find them lying in uncomfortable positions even this early in the season. Later in the season, when they stop eating, they lie in uncomfortable positions because the follicles are so large. They have actually stopped eating, but they're still uncomfortable because the follicles are now so big. So not unusual at this time of year to see them laid in these uncomfortable positions. What's going on in the snake room? Well, let's pull a few tubs. It's easy for me to monitor where we are in the season because I have a fairly large collection, so not all the snakes exhibit all the behaviours all the time, but during the course of the season, when many of your females start to behave the same way, it's easy to see what's going on as opposed to monitoring just one female and looking at her behaviours in isolation. So a little bit easier for me, but not significantly so. Let's pull a few tubs and see what we can see. Lying curled up on her side. Obviously a little bit uncomfortable. You can see a bulge there in this section here. It's looking a little bit lumpy, obviously building. Nice. This female here, curled up under the newspapers, is my first time female, a 2-and-a-bit-year-old vanilla clown. She has been paired and she was just over 1,500 grams a couple of months ago, and she is now pushing 2,000 grams. You can see how thick she is, and she is building nicely. So this is exactly what I'm looking for at this time of year, this early in the season, is the females that have been paired are eating ravenously and building size and putting on weight. So this is great news. These are good signs. And here is a mature female. She bred for me last year, laid eggs in April. She is also being paired, and she is building nicely too. You can see how thick she's getting at the rear end, and she is eating ravenously. It's very hard to open the tub sometimes because she comes flying out expecting to be fed. She's going through that ravenous eating phase, and this female, I'll be watching her to see when she goes off food, because she is likely to be the first of my snakes to ovulate. And so this is again good signs. She's been locking regularly with the male. She's building. You can see how thick she is, particularly in the rear half of the snake, particularly down at the bottom end. She's getting quite thick down here. I won't put my fingers in case she mistakes me for food, and so we'll leave her to get on with it. I try not to disturb them too much at this time when they're building. All they need from me is a male now and again and food. Here is a female that has been paired up from last year actually, and didn't go last year, and she's continued to be paired. She went off food for a while, and now she's back on food again, which suggests to me that she's reabsorbed from last season. We'll try again this year, but she is on the verge of getting fat, so this is one snake to watch. Whilst it is necessary to increase the frequency of feeding to simulate food abundance, this girl is definitely one to control her intake, because as I said, she is on the verge of getting fat, and we don't want that in our breeder female snakes. So this girl will be fed frequently but smaller meals. Let's see if we can encourage her to breed this year. She was old enough last year. She has been paired throughout, but decided not to go last season. So we'll try again this year. This is another typical response from a female who is building. While she's not exhibiting bowl hugging behaviour, she's at the back of the tub. She's instantly alert when I open the tub. This girl wants to be fed. This is a feeding response. So she is building, and this is something else to watch out for in your snakes. They don't do all the behaviours all the time. This girl is hungry, and her feed response has stepped up a notch, which tells me that yes, she is building. Here's another female laying uncomfortably on her side. You can see how lumpy she's looking, building quite nicely there. So we won't disturb her. And here we have the classic bowl wrap cooling behaviour as this female builds. And here's a couple of snakes that were paired up yesterday, and you can see that they are locked. This is my female spinner to the orange dream yellow belly male, and the male just shed a couple of days ago, so I was waiting for him to shed so I could pair him to this female. It's time again this month to pair them up, and sure enough, now that he's shed, he's straight back in the groove and hard at work. As you can see from the intro, the feeding response of some of these girls is getting very enthusiastic. You do need to be a little bit careful opening tubs at this time of year, because the females will expect to be fed. They're ravenously hungry and packing on weight as they develop follicles, and you will find that they can be a little bit enthusiastic about their feeding response, so careful when you open the tubs at this time of year. Some of the questions that I've received focus on when is the right time to start breeding your females, and I can't tell you that. I would not even pretend to advise you what to do with your females. I can only tell you what I do with mine. The standard guidelines of 18 months and 1500 grams are just guidelines, and many people will breed their snakes even earlier than that successfully. But all I would say is don't underestimate how much effort it takes for these girls to actually go on and lay eggs. It's a big strain on their systems, and they do put considerable effort and energy into laying a clutch of eggs. So let's have a look at a few of my females who I am not breeding yet this year. They are females which are approaching 18 months and approaching 1500 grams. So let's take a look and see what we can see. This girl here is a 15-month-old female, about 1300 grams, and she is already starting to give me signs that she is sexually mature. I don't want to breed her this age, this small. I'll wait for her to grow a little bit larger, but this is one to watch because she is bole wrapping, and I'll be watching her closely to see whether she starts to build follicles. She was hatched in September last year, so still quite young, but she is behaving as though she's sexually mature. Unlike her sister in this tub, who is the same age and the same weight, but is not behaving the same way. This girl is clearly not ready yet. So just a few differences in snakes the same age. These are young snakes. I won't be pushing these snakes at all, but you can see the difference in behaviour. And again, just for contrast, here's my ex-clown female, another 2019 female, not quite ready yet, and you can see that she is not behaving the way the other snakes are. She's not ready to breed yet, she's not building, she's not doing any of the behaviours. She's just sitting here waiting to be fed. She is gaining weight. She'll be a candidate for next year, but not this year. From her behaviour, she's definitely not building. The mature females in the room are all doing the same things. They're all showing signs of building. This female is not. Here is another female, same thing. She's quite young, as this is a 2019 snake, so again not 2 years old yet, a female killer clown, and again she is behaving as if she's having a dry run for breeding here. She's cooling and bole wrapping, doing all the right things, but again still just a little bit young. People ask me if my female is starting to go off food and is stuck at the 1000 gram wall or 1200 grams, is it okay to pair her up with a male to see whether that switches her on and gets her eating? I generally don't do that. I like to get my females up to size before I even introduce a male, but I know of people that have successfully done it. They introduce a male, the female gets switched on to food, starts to grow follicles, and goes on to lay a clutch of eggs. So it does work, it can work. The danger here is that the female does actually go on to lay a clutch of eggs and doesn't gain the weight that she needs, and that can actually leave her in very poor condition. At the end of laying a clutch of eggs, as I said, it is quite a strain on the females, and that's the reason that I like to get them up to size first before I start to pair, rather than pair them up and hope that they will get up to size. The danger is that they do go on to lay a clutch of eggs and don't get up to size. But far be it from me to tell you what you should and shouldn't do with your snakes. Okay, let's take a look at males, and specifically pairing your males to multiple females. There is a roster here. I've put it on a piece of paper. Again, I'll put it up here so that you can see it. And the scheme here is there are 2 schemes for males that are being paired to 3 or less females, and the scheme at the bottom is if you have a powerhouse male and a number of females and you want to pair him up to several females. The main issue with the males is to try to keep them eating and try to keep their strength up for servicing all those females. So with less than 3 females, there's several different ways that you can do it. You can pair your snakes in a week to 3 separate females, one after the other, and then feed him at the end of the week, and then next month pair him to the same 3 females. You can switch the order around that you pair him up, or you can pair him up to 1 female, take him out, feed him, pair him up to another female, take him out, rest him, pair him up to another female. And generally speaking, most of my males are going to 3 females or less, and I use a hybrid system of either pairing the male straight from 1 female to another, but I do like to try to rest him between pairings. So even if he's not being fed, I'll give him a day's rest before I put him in with the next female, just to make sure that his sperm count stays high and I'm not overstressing him. Not too much of a worry if your males are going to less than 4 females. That's fairly easy to manage. If your males are going to several females, it's almost inevitable that they will be going from tub to tub between feedings, but it is important to give them a break at the end of the week and try to get a feed in if they will still eat. Typically males will not lock with females when they're in shed, so you need to juggle that around. So on your pairing schedules you need to factor in both feeding and shedding cycles. Typically a female will lock with a male when she's in shed, but not the other way around. So I tend not to pair my males when they're in shed. I give them a few days off until they finish that shedding process, and then we start the process all over again. The main issue is with your smaller males, and many first-time breeders will have females that are only just up to size and their males only just up to size as well. So if you're going to work him hard and pair him to several different females, you do need to monitor his condition, monitor his weight, and make sure that he stays eating, because they can go downhill and lose condition very, very quickly. So keep an eye on your smaller males. Males that are over 1,000 grams, 1,200 grams, generally not an issue. They can go off food for months at a time and still sustain themselves without any harm. Generally, most of my males do not go completely off food, but some of them do get a little bit sporadic. As long as they're still eating, even if it is at irregular intervals, I tend not to worry too much, and as long as they don't lose too much weight, I tend not to worry too much. But certainly first-time males, worth keeping an eye on them to make sure that they don't lose condition, that they do stay eating, and that you don't push them too hard, because it is possible for a male to breed himself to death, particularly the younger males, so we need to avoid that. If we take a look at my breeding roster, you will see that early in the season I got a large number of locks almost immediately. This month has been a little bit quieter. Some of the males locked, some of the males haven't, but it is early days in the season yet. All my females are still eating, there are none of them off food, so we still have plenty of time to get those locks in. The initial pairings are just to get the females in the mood and start them building follicles. It's not necessarily to fertilize eggs just prior to ovulation. That's still many months away from me just yet. But I know that many of you are more advanced, and some of your females will be off food now, and you'll be looking forward to ovulations if you haven't had your first ovulations of the season yet. My season tends to be a little bit later, and my first ovulations will not be until well into the new year. And here is my breeding roster, and you will notice here that we have 2 males, the empty Cyprus Ivory and the Asphalt Double Het Clown Pied, which are not locking with the females yet. So let's take a look at those 2 males and find out what the issue might be with those particular males. Let's just take a quick look at the 2 males that are not performing. This is the Enchi Cyprus Ivory, which should be plenty big enough. This is quite a large snake. We're just going to put him inside this sack here and pop him to see whether he's producing sperm plugs. So we put him in the sack to make sure that he's controllable and he's not going to wriggle around. Let me see if I can show you this on the camera. So when we pop a mature male, we have to start from quite far back. And I don't know whether you can see that or not, but before the hemipene came out, there is a sperm plug. And one from the other side. So this is a mature male producing sperm plugs, and we'll continue to pair him, so the issue is not with the male. And here is the asphalt male that also has not been performing. He's a little bit smaller, and we'll just do the same thing with him to check what we have here. And you can see the hemipene there. Well, there is no sperm plug. That's not a mature hemipene. So the issue with this guy is that he is not actually sexually mature quite yet. Some males are, and some males are not. And this guy is not actually sexually mature and producing sperm plugs yet. So we still have time in the season. It's early in the season. No reason to put a substitute male in quite yet. I will give this guy a rest for a couple of months and feed him up to see whether he starts producing sperm plugs before I will even consider using an alternate male. The female laid for me last year in June, so we have a few months yet to consider whether this guy is going to do the business, and we can consider a backup male if I really want to produce that female this year, if this guy does not start to produce sperm plugs. So the issue here with this guy is with the male. He is not yet sexually mature. Okay guys, I hope that was useful. That's a little bit of an update on my season. Pretty much business as usual, lots of cleaning, lots of feeding, lots of pairing at this stage, and I am looking forward to some of the females starting to go off food because their tubs stay clean and I don't need to clean them out quite so often. So yes, busiest time of year. Some of you may be more advanced than that. Some of your females will be off food, but the same things that I observe in my snake room, you'll be observing in your females too. So good luck with your season. I hope you found this useful. We'll be doing another update later in the year when there's more to look at, perhaps when my females go off food. But until then, good luck. Keep pairing up those males. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.